Now, Australians continue to face cost of living pressures and high interest rates, and there are obviously questions about price gouging as well that have been key. Federal Liberal MP Keith Wolahan is on the House of Representatives Standing Committee on Economics, and he joins us now. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Patricia.
It seems that populism was the big pushback from a lot of these bosses. Wesfarmers Managing Director Rob Scott has said he was surprised that the coalition had dragged his hardware chain through some of this, particularly accusing it of gouging customers. Is populism and your own party's embrace of it part of the problem, or are the bosses wrong?
I think we need to put all of that in perspective. When allegations of populism were made, it was primarily against that speech given by Adam Bandt, which Labor have sought to dismiss as just politics and a talking point. But we face the very real possibility of a hung parliament. So when Adam Bandt speaks and puts terms to a potential coalition, I think we should all pay attention. And what he proposed would potentially bankrupt this nation and decimate the superannuation savings of Australians.
Okay, so taking you back to your part of that, which is the coalition's embrace of populism, do you take on that criticism? Because it wasn't just to the Greens.
No, and that criticism was levelled. I think that's overstated. I think what we are focusing on is an issue of competition. And it is fair to say through many other inquiries that this committee has sat through that the Australian economy does lend itself towards oligopoly profits. And that's quite different to, open price gouging or corruption as put by Adam Bandt. And so where there are levers you can pull to increase competition, that's good for the economy and it's good for consumers. And we have seen in particular sectors that particular industries are dominated by a few key players, and it does lead to rising prices.
Oligopoly profits, that's a strong statement. Is there evidence now, do you think, of companies that are just too big in Australia and are causing a situation of price gouging?
It depends what time frame you're looking at. Oligopoly profits don't have to be taken all the time, but look at many of our sectors, like in supermarkets, in aviation, and in banks as well. We're hearing from the four big banks. It's in the title that it's not completely open competition. That they would say otherwise. But there's many different things you can do with our competition policy and our competition laws to make it more competitive. And also from time to time, you will see new players come and go, and we see that in the airlines where the consumers will see prices drop. So it's not for the government to be intervening and making sure that there's particular competition from a new player. It's for the private sector to do that, but we should make sure that the rules are fair for them to enter and compete so the consumers win.
It does seem, though, that the big companies are almost fighting back. They are being more frequently called to parliamentary hearings. They're being questioned, sometimes aggressively, but, that's okay, on lots of things. Is there a new front in the war across politics with these big companies?
Look, I think when we're going through really tough economic times like we are now, I think Australians want answers across the board from governments, from corporations, and they want to know that the system is fair. And I think the pushback, which is also fair, is that when we do that, we should do it with evidence and we should do it with facts. And I think Matt Coman in particular from the CBA, I think he was pushing back on a lot of the allegations that have been made about super profits and what the consequences would be if we were to have a policy like Adam Bandt proposed earlier in the week.
Just before we hit the news and AM, you know that there's a debate going on at the moment about the census. Do you think questions about gender and sexuality should be added?
Just as a matter of general principle, I think that the more questions you put, the more useful it is. But I guess there's a balance to be had as to whether you put too many questions in. I don't see the harm in adding that. I know in other areas, like in asking who veterans are, that was only recently added, and that's been really useful. So I think more data is always useful. And so I'm not sure what the dispute is or the concern is here from the government's perspective.
Right. Well, previously it was, to be fair, your government that didn't go ahead with it too. So you think, let's move on, questions are a good thing?
That's my position. I don't see the damage or the harm in adding more questions like this.
Thank you so much for your time, Keith.
Thanks, Patricia.
Keith Wolahan is a member of the House of Representatives Economics Committee. There you go.